Hello, my name is Nicholas Abson. Uh, I'm probably better known for making pop videos than fuel cells, although I should be well known for doing fuel cells. I've spent the last 35 years developing fuel cell technology, along with quite a number of scientists and academics. And indeed, I've become an academic to a certain extent as well. But what I want to do is sort of bring this technology to you so that you can understand how to be able to bring energy costs down by being able to make and develop fuel cell and hydrogen technology. Now, the purpose of this isn't to actually take you for a lesson in how to make fuel cells, but to give you a general overall understanding so that you can contact and we can talk through it and I can introduce you to other people who would be helpful. But the main purpose of this podcast or live stream or whatever we call it is to be able to get people to understand that they do not have to rely on energy produced by the major energy companies or indeed the national ones. The story really starts in a very unlikely place, and that is the state of Georgia. And the reason I chose the state of Georgia is because it has one amazing thing, and that is the electrical supply companies that are owned by the subscribers. In other words, they're community owned. They have been so successful that they've managed to take over most of the energy production in the state. Now, this happened in about 1922 when the big electricity companies refused to supply the farmers with electricity. So the government of the time, and believe me, it was a right-wing, rather dumb government, but they actually understood that they needed to supply farmers with electricity because otherwise they weren't going to get food. So what they did is they helped set up what were called rural cooperatives, and these were subscribers who were able to start a company to produce their own electricity or buy it in and redistribute it. They became the backbone of a movement that went out throughout Georgia, even into the cities where they had quite large cooperatives, such as Oglethorpe Energy, for instance, in Atlanta, which is huge. Eventually, these companies prospered, and they had maybe 1,200 subscribers or something in that order. So they were very small and gradually built into a powerful coalition of all of the rural cooperatives, and they were able to exchange and help each other in order to be able to reduce their energy costs. Now, Georgia has some of the lowest energy costs in the United States, and it's because of this. And what we should do is use that as a lesson for Europe. And at the moment, it's blocked, particularly in the UK, well, over most of Europe, but in the UK, it is blocked by government legislation that only allows for a very small amount of energy to be produced in the community. So the level is only 50 kilowatts, which is enough to supply maybe 20 houses, 20 homes. So not sufficient to be able to bring any real cost benefits. However, if you have something like, able to do something like a megawatt or 2 megawatts, this is a community energy facility and can supply quite a number of homes. And the technology that I've been developing and other people are developing does exactly that. And it takes the waste that the community generates, turns it into hydrogen, and puts it into fuel cells. This, of course, undermines, very much so, the large electricity suppliers, or indeed the grid, which is costing a huge amount of money. In Britain, you're paying on average 24 pence per kilowatt hour, when in reality you should be paying 7 pence per kilowatt hour. Not only does that affect the general economics of the country, but it restricts growth. And this has been a system that has been perpetuated for decades since the privatization of the electricity industry by Margaret Thatcher. Following that, the privatized companies, like most systems that work this way, divided bits up, and exploited one against the other, etc. And gradually the prices went up and up and up and up, and their profits went up. Prior to that, all the money that was made from electricity was plowed back into the electricity industry. And it built the network that we have to this day. The problem is that the network that we have today is antiquated, totally out of date, and doesn't use the right technology. What we need is a thing called distributed energy. And this goes back to these rural cooperatives. Distributed energy means that it's produced locally. Now, you might turn around and say, yeah, well, how does this work with the big cities? The same way. As if you consider a big city to be basically a more condensed version of everywhere else, then what you do is you condense the system that is going to provide them the energy. And when we talk about waste to energy, and when we talk about turning organic waste, which is now mostly incinerated to the detriment of our health and CO2, when you talk about converting that, there isn't enough of it, not from your domestic applications. So your bins, etc., will not power your house. There's enough organic waste in a normal house that would provide only enough electricity to maybe light one light bulb all day. So you've got to find additional waste. And that's where you have to actually bring in the waste from where it really comes from, where the most of it comes from. So, for example, a shopping center will produce vast amounts of waste. Airports produce vast amounts of waste. Farmers produce vast amounts of waste. Farmers are pretty clever. They've actually learned this. So they have anaerobic digesters and such to be able to produce gas, which they turn into electricity. And guess what they do? They sell it to the grid. And they might be producing it at 5 pence per kilowatt hour, but it gets onto the grid and becomes 24 pence by the time it gets to you. Now, the reason the difference between 5 pence and 7 pence is because it's community owned. You want to put money back into the community. So the difference between the cost of producing the electricity and its retail value to the consumer or to the subscriber is money that can be used by the local community for doing the things that it needs to do, that can no longer be funded by government. And that is things such as healthcare, some of the healthcare issues, community care, looking after the old, looking after people like me, and providing for local transport and all those things that we find difficult now because of the collapse of the system of administration in the UK. So this is going to be that journey on how to be able to do this from, as they say, soup to nuts. So how to make the technology, how to put it into action, how to operate it, how to broker it, how to provide it to subscribers, how the subscribers work, and how they own it. And that's what's going to happen over the next couple of months. So if you're interested, please subscribe, and we'll get on from there. Bye for now.